I paid $157,000 to save her. Every document was fake, every tear was rehearsed, and I believed every single word. This is how I lost everything. I wasn't looking for love when I walked into that convenience store in Manila. I was just trying to get through another day without thinking about Margaret. 6 months she'd been gone. 6 months of waking up to an empty bed and pretending I was fine. My daughter kept calling from Sydney, asking if I was eating properly, if I was taking my medications, if I'd considered coming home. I told her I needed time. What I really needed was to stop feeling like half a person. The store was small, tucked between a laundromat and a cell phone repair shop. I'd walked past it a dozen times before I finally went in. I needed batteries. Or maybe I just needed an excuse to be around people who didn't know I was grieving. She was behind the counter when I walked in. Young, maybe mid-20s. She had her hair tied back and was organizing cigarette packs on the shelf behind her. When I approached, she turned around and smiled. Not the automatic customer service smile, something softer. "Good afternoon, sir," she said. Her English had that gentle Filipino accent that made every word sound careful. "How are you today?" I almost laughed. How was I? I hadn't slept properly in weeks. I'd lost 12 kilos. I spent most nights staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I was still doing in Manila when everything that mattered was buried back in Newcastle. But I didn't say any of that. "I'm all right," I said. "Just need some batteries." She nodded and started looking through the drawers behind the counter. "What size, sir?" "AA." She found them quickly, placed them on the counter. Then she looked at me again. Really looked at me. "You don't look okay," she said quietly. And that's when something inside me cracked. Not broke, just cracked. Enough to let something out. "I'm just tired," I said. She didn't push, didn't ask questions. Just nodded like she understood. "My name is Melody," she said. "If you need anything, just ask, okay?" I paid for the batteries, walked out. Spent the rest of the day thinking about the way she'd looked at me, like I was a person, not a customer, not a burden, just a person who needed someone to see him. I went back the next day. Didn't need anything, just went. She was there again, restocking the shelves. When she saw me, she smiled. "You came back," she said. "Guess I did," I said. "You like coffee, sir?" I nodded. She disappeared into the back room and came out with 2 paper cups. We stood there in the empty store, drinking instant coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, and she told me about her morning. How the jeepney broke down, how her manager was late again. Small things, normal things, things that had nothing to do with death or loneliness or loss. And I realized something. I'd been holding my breath for 6 months, and for the first time since Margaret died, I was breathing again. I started going to that store every day, sometimes twice a day. I'd buy small things. Gum, water, snacks I didn't need, and every time Melody would talk to me about her childhood in Albay, about her mother who sold vegetables at the market, about her dream of becoming a nurse someday. She never asked about me, never pried. She just talked, and I just listened, and somehow that was enough. One evening, after about 2 weeks of this ridiculous routine, I worked up the courage. "Melody," I said as I was leaving, "would you maybe want to get dinner sometime? I mean, if you're not busy, or if that's not weird. I know I'd like that," she said. She wrote her number on a receipt and handed it to me. "Text me, sir." "Allan," I said. "My name's Allan." She smiled. "Text me, Allan." I walked out of that store feeling like an idiot. A 66-year-old man asking out a girl young enough to be his granddaughter. But I also felt something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt alive. I must have rewritten that text message 50 times. "Hi, Melody. It's Allan from the store. Would you like to have dinner this weekend?" Too formal. "Hey, it's me. Dinner?" Too casual. "Hi, this is Allan. I was serious about dinner if you were." Too desperate. Eventually, I just wrote, "Hi, Melody. It's Allan. Are you free Saturday evening?" and hit send before I could overthink it. She responded in less than a minute. "Yes." I finish work at 6. Where should we meet? I spent the next 3 days in a panic. What was I doing? This wasn't a date. It couldn't be a date. She was being polite. She probably felt sorry for me. The old widower who came into her store every day looking like a lost dog. She was just being kind. But then Saturday came, and I found myself standing outside a small restaurant in Malate, wearing the one decent shirt I'd packed, sweating through my deodorant, and feeling every one of my 66 years. When she arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. She wasn't wearing her work clothes. She had on a simple blue dress, no makeup, and her hair was down. She looked younger somehow. Softer. "Hi, Allan," she said. "Hi," I managed. We sat down at a corner table. I was so nervous I could barely read the menu. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just been a while since I did this." "Did what?" "Had dinner with someone." She smiled. Not out of pity. Out of something else. Understanding, maybe. "Me too," she said. We ordered. Adobo for her. Sinigang for me because she said I had to try it. And then she started talking. Really talking. Not the small talk from the store. Real things. "I grew up in Albay," she said. "It's a province south of here. Very poor. My father worked in the fields. My mother sold vegetables. We had 6 people in a 2-room house. When I was 14, my father got sick. Cancer. We didn't have money for the hospital. My mother borrowed from everyone she could. Friends, neighbors, even the local loan sharks." She paused, looked down at her food. "He died anyway, and we were left with all that debt. That's why I'm here, working, trying to pay it back little by little." I didn't know what to say. I just reached across the table and put my hand over hers. "I'm sorry," I said. She looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. "You're the first person who's asked about my life in a long time," she said. "Everyone here just sees a store clerk. No one asks." "I'm asking," I said. And she told me everything. About her dream of going to nursing school. About sending money home every month. About how tired she was all the time but couldn't stop because her family needed her. About how lonely Manila was. How different from home. How she sometimes cried at night because she missed her mother. And I listened. Really listened. Not because I wanted something from her, but because for the first time since Margaret died, I felt like I had something to give. Someone needed me. Someone saw me as more than just a grieving old man taking up space. When we finished eating, I walked her to the jeepney stop. "Thank you for tonight," she said, "for listening." "Thank you for saying yes," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she reached up and squeezed my hand. "You're a good man, Allan," she said. And then she was gone. I stood there on that street corner for 10 minutes after she left. Just stood there, replaying her words, the way she'd looked at me, the way she'd held my hand. I knew I was falling for her. And I knew it was probably the stupidest thing I could do, but I didn't care, because for the first time in 6 months, I wanted to wake up tomorrow. 3 weeks after our first date, Melody asked me something I wasn't expecting. "Do you want to meet my family?" We were sitting in a park near her apartment. It was a Sunday, her day off. "Your family?" I said. "In Albay. I'm going home next weekend for my cousin's birthday. I thought maybe you'd like to come, if it's not too much." I should have said no. I should have told her it was too soon, too serious, too complicated, but instead I said, "I'd love to." The bus ride to Albay took 8 hours. Melody slept most of the way, her head on my shoulder. I stayed awake, watching the countryside roll past, wondering what the hell I was getting myself into. When we arrived, her Tita Evelyn was waiting at the terminal. She was a short, round woman with a huge smile. The moment she saw me, she pulled me into a hug like I was already family. "Allan, welcome, welcome. Melody told us so much about you." Her English was broken but enthusiastic. "Thank you for having me," I said. "Ano ba, you are family now." She grabbed my arm and led me to a tricycle. "We have food ready. You must be hungry." The house was small, concrete walls, tin roof, a small yard with chickens running around. But inside, it was spotless, and there were at least 15 people crammed into the living room. Tita Evelyn introduced me to everyone, cousins, neighbors. Melody's brother Jerome, a quiet man in his 30s who shook my hand firmly and said, "Thank you for coming, sir." They'd prepared a feast, lechon, pancit, lumpia, more food than I'd seen in months. "Please, eat," Tita Evelyn kept saying. "You are too skinny." They asked me about Australia, about my work, about Newcastle. They were curious but never intrusive, kind but never pushy. It felt real. It felt like family. After dinner, Jerome pulled me aside. "My sister talks about you a lot," he said. "She's happy. I can see it. Thank you for that." "She makes me happy too," I said. He nodded. "That's good. That's all we want for her. She works so hard. She deserves someone who treats her well." That night, Melody and I sat on the small porch behind the house. The air was cool. The stars were bright. "Your family is wonderful," I said. "They like you," she said. "I can tell." "How can you tell?" "Because Tita Evelyn keeps calling you family. She doesn't do that for everyone." I laughed. "I'm honored." She leaned against me. "I'm glad you came." Later, when everyone else was asleep, I lay on a thin mattress in the living room, listening to the sounds of the house settling, and I thought about what Jerome had said. She deserves someone who treats her well. I wanted to be that person. I wanted to take care of her, protect her, give her the life she deserved. I fell asleep feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. But before I drifted off completely, I heard Tita Evelyn's voice in the kitchen. She was talking to someone in Tagalog. I couldn't understand the words, but I caught one phrase, "my amansya." I didn't know what it meant, not then, but I would. 2 months after I met her family, everything changed. Melody and I were in my apartment. It was late. We'd just finished dinner. She was quieter than usual, distant. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, but she wasn't looking at me. "Melody, what's wrong?" She took a deep breath, and then she started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears rolling down her face. I moved closer, put my arm around her. Hey, talk to me." "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to burden you." "Tell me what?" She wiped her eyes, looked at me. "My family has a debt, a big debt. From when my father was sick. We've been paying it for years, but the interest keeps growing. It's destroying us." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. 8.7 million pesos. I did the math in my head. That's about $157,000 Australian. She nodded. "The lender says, if we don't pay soon, they'll take our house. Everything we have. My mother will have nowhere to go." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I was ashamed." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want you to think I was with you because of money. I didn't want you to think I'm that kind of girl. I don't think that," I said. But even as I said it, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Don't you? My family has been paying little by little, but it's not enough. Every month the interest eats up what we pay. We're drowning, Allan, and I don't know what to do." She buried her face in her hands. I sat there, my arm around her, my mind racing. $157,000. That was a huge amount. Most of my retirement savings. Money I'd worked 40 years to build. Money I'd planned to use to travel, maybe buy a small place by the beach, live comfortably until I died. But as I looked at Melody, shaking with sobs, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about money. This was about saving her, about being the person she needed, about proving I wasn't just some useless old man waiting to die. "I'll help," I said. She looked up. "What?" "I'll help you pay it." "Allan, no. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. It's too much. It's my family's problem, not yours. If you're in my life, your problems are my problems." She stared at me. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Allan, that's your retirement money. That's your future." "My future is sitting right here," I said, and I meant it. In that moment, I meant every word. She threw her arms around me and held on like I was the only thing keeping her from drowning. I don't deserve you, she whispered. You saved us. You saved my family. I haven't done anything yet, I said. But inside, I was already making plans, calculating numbers, figuring out how to move money, how to make this work. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Melody asleep beside me. And a small part of me, a quiet, cynical part I tried to ignore, whispered one question. What if you're wrong? I pushed the thought away. This was real. She was real, and I was going to save her. Melody arranged the meeting with Rico, the loan officer. He's the one managing the debt, she explained. He's been patient with my family, but he says we're running out of time. We met him at a small office near Quiapo. The place looked official enough. Desk, filing cabinets, a computer that looked about 10 years old. Rico was in his 40s, neat haircut, button-down shirt, polite smile. He stood when we entered and shook my hand firmly. Mr. Allan, thank you for coming. Melody speaks very highly of you. Thank you, I said. We sat down. Melody sat beside me, her hands clasped in her lap. She looked small, scared. Rico opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. I want to be completely transparent with you, he said. This is a difficult situation, but it's not impossible to resolve. He spread the documents across the desk. Loan agreements, payment schedules, official-looking stamps and signatures. The original loan was taken out 7 years ago, Rico explained. The principal was 3.2 million pesos, but with interest and missed payments, it has grown to 8.7 million. The lender has been patient, but they're now requiring full payment within 90 days, or they will begin foreclosure proceedings on the family property. Can I see the agreement? I asked. He handed me the papers. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a retired dock supervisor. I know about shipping schedules and cargo manifests, not legal documents. But I tried to read it carefully. The language was dense. The numbers added up, as far as I could tell. There were stamps, signatures, a notary seal. Everything looked legitimate, but something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Is there any way to negotiate the amount? I asked. Or extend the timeline? Rico shook his head. I've tried. The lender is firm. They want full payment or they take the property. I looked at Melody. She was staring at the floor, her eyes red. Can I take these documents and have someone review them? I asked. Rico hesitated. Normally, yes, but the originals must stay with me for legal reasons. I can provide you with copies, of course. That would be helpful. However, Rico continued, I must be honest with you. Time is a factor. If you wait too long to review, we may miss the deadline. He leaned forward, his expression sympathetic. I understand your caution, but I've seen situations like this before. Foreigners come in, try to help, get overwhelmed by the bureaucracy, and by the time they're ready to act, it's too late. The family loses everything. Melody looked at me. Her eyes were pleading, not demanding, just desperate. I know this is a lot to ask, Rico said, but if you're willing to help, I can structure this as 3 payments. That way, you're not handing over everything at once. You can monitor the situation. 3 payments. That actually made sense. How would that work? I asked. First payment of $52,000 to halt the foreclosure proceedings. Second payment of $52,000 to settle the principal. Final payment of $53,000 to clear the interest and close the account. I did the math again. It checked out. And Melody's family keeps their house? Guaranteed. Once the debt is cleared, I'll provide you with all the documentation showing the lien has been released. Melody reached over and took my hand. Allan, you don't have to do this. But her voice said the opposite. Her voice said please. Rico slid a payment agreement across the desk. If you decide to proceed, we can begin with the first installment. That will stop the foreclosure clock immediately. I looked at the document, then at Melody, then at Rico. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to slow down, to get a lawyer, to verify everything. But then I thought about Tita Evelyn's hug, Jerome's handshake, the food they'd shared with me, the way Melody had looked when she said, "You saved us." I picked up the pen. "I'll do the first payment now," I said. "I need to transfer funds from Australia, so it will take a few days." Rico smiled. "That's completely understandable. Thank you, Mr. Allan. You're doing a wonderful thing for this family." Melody squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. When we left the office, she hugged me on the street. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "It's going to be okay," I said. But that night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Rico's face, the way he'd smiled when I signed, the way he'd emphasized the time pressure. I pulled out my phone and almost called my daughter, almost told her what I was about to do, but I didn't, because I knew what she'd say, and I wasn't ready to hear it. It took me 3 days to arrange the transfer. $52,000, Australian dollars, from my retirement account in Newcastle to Rico's nominated bank account in Manila. I watched the balance drop and felt something twist in my stomach, but then I thought about Melody's smile, about her family, about being someone who kept his promises. I texted Melody when it was done. First payment sent. She called me immediately. "Really? Allan, really? Really? Oh my God. I need to tell my mother. She's been so worried. I need to tell Tita Evelyn. I need to breathe." I said, laughing. "Just breathe." "I love you," she said, and then she hung up. I stared at my phone. She'd never said that before. I texted back, "I love you too." That weekend, Melody's family threw a small celebration. Nothing big, just the core family. Tita Evelyn, Jerome, a few cousins. They'd cooked my favorite dishes. They kept thanking me. "You are a hero," Tita Evelyn said, hugging me. "You saved our family." Jerome shook my hand. "I will never forget what you did, Allan." Melody was radiant. She couldn't stop smiling. She kept holding my hand, introducing me to people as the man who saved us. I felt good. I felt like I'd done the right thing. But then, about 4 days later, I noticed something. Melody wasn't texting as much. I'd send her a message in the morning. She'd reply hours later. "Busy at work." I'd ask if she wanted to have dinner. "Maybe tomorrow. I'm tired tonight." At first, I didn't think much of it. She was probably just stressed. The relief of the first payment probably made her realize how exhausted she was. But after a week, it was clear. Something had changed. I called her. It rang 6 times before she picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was flat. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, just working. You want to grab lunch?" "I haven't seen you in days." "I can't today, Allan. I told you, I'm busy." "Okay. Tomorrow?" She hesitated. "Maybe. I'll let you know." "Melody, is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I just need some space right now." "Okay?" Space. The word hit me like a punch. Did I do something wrong? No. I just need to think. Think about what? "Allan, please. I can't do this right now." "I'll call you later." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, my chest tight. What the hell just happened? I texted her that night. "I'm here if you want to talk." No response. I called her the next day, straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Just checking in. Call me when you get a chance." She didn't call. I went to the store where she worked. The manager said she'd called in sick. I texted Tita Evelyn. "Have you heard from Melody? I'm worried." She responded hours later. "She is okay, just tired." Don't worry. Don't worry. How could I not worry? I'd just given her family $52,000 and now she was avoiding me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she felt guilty for taking my money. Maybe she needed time to process everything. But deep down, a small, cold voice whispered, "What have you done?" 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Rico. "Mr. Allan, I hope you're well." "I'm fine," I said. Though I wasn't. "I'm calling about the second installment. We're approaching the next deadline. If we want to keep the process moving smoothly, we'll need the payment within the next 5 days." "I need to speak with Melody first," I said. Of course. Have you been in touch with her? Not really. She's been hard to reach. There was a pause. I see. Well, these situations can be stressful for families. I'm sure she's just processing everything. Can you tell her to call me? I'll pass along the message, Rico said. But regarding the payment, do you think you'll be able to proceed? I hesitated. I need to talk to her first. I understand. But I must remind you, if we miss this window, the lender may reinstate the foreclosure. Everything you've done so far could be for nothing. That got me. Everything I'd done, the $52,000, the trust, the belief that I was helping. Give me 2 days, I said. Of course, I'll be waiting. I hung up and immediately called Melody. Straight to voicemail again. Melody, it's Allan. Rico called about the second payment. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. Nothing. I waited 12 hours. Then I called again. This time she answered. Hello? Melody, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Are you okay? I'm fine, Allan. You don't sound fine. What's going on? Nothing's going on. I'm just overwhelmed. With what? With everything. The debt, my family, work, us. It's all too much right now. I'm trying to help. You know that, right? I know, and I appreciate it. I really do. Then why won't you talk to me? Silence. Melody? Rico called you, didn't he? Yes. And he wants the second payment. Yes. Another long silence. Can you send it? She asked. My stomach dropped. That's all you want to talk about? The money? That's not fair, Allan. You know how much pressure my family is under. You know what's at stake. I know. But I also know that you've been avoiding me for 2 weeks, and the only time you call is when there's money involved. That's not true. Then what is true? I'm scared. Her voice broke. I'm scared that I'm using you. I'm scared that you're going to regret helping us. I'm scared that when this is over, you'll realize I'm not worth it. Melody, that's not, please, Allan, just send the money. We can talk after. I promise. But right now, I need you to do this. For me, for my family. I closed my eyes. When can I see you? Soon, I promise. Just send the money first. And then she hung up. I sat there for an hour, staring at my phone. Everything in me screamed to stop, to wait, to demand answers. But then I thought about her voice, the fear, the desperation. I thought about Tita Evelyn, about Jerome, about the house they were about to lose. I logged into my bank account, transferred another $52,000, watched my retirement fund shrink even more, sent Melody a message, payment sent. She responded immediately. Got it, thank you. That was it. 2 words. I waited for more, for an explanation, for warmth, for anything. But there was nothing. I tried calling her the next day. Voicemail. The day after that. Voicemail. I texted Tita Evelyn. Can you ask Melody to call me? No response. I called Jerome. He answered, but his voice was distant. She's just busy, Allan, don't worry, everything is fine. But everything wasn't fine. I could feel it. I booked a flight to Manila that night. I didn't tell anyone. I just booked the flight and decided I was going to get answers, one way or another. I landed in Manila on a Tuesday morning, went straight to Melody's apartment, knocked on the door, no answer, knocked again, nothing. I tried calling, voicemail. I sat in the hallway outside her door for 2 hours, just sat there, waiting. Finally, an older woman came out of the apartment across the hall. She looked at me curiously. You looking for Melody? She asked in English. Yes, I said, standing up. Do you know where she is? The woman hesitated. You're the foreigner, right? The Australian? Yes, I'm Allan. She studied me for a moment, then sighed. Come inside. We need to talk. I followed her into her apartment. She gestured for me to sit, made 2 cups of tea, sat down across from me. My name is Nina, she said. I've lived here for 15 years. I see everything. Okay. You're looking for Melody. Yes. Nina looked at me with something like pity. She doesn't live here anymore. What do you mean? She moved out about a month ago. Moved where? I don't know exactly, but I know she moved with a man, young guy. They were together a lot, My blood went cold. What are you talking about? I'm sorry. I thought you knew. I thought maybe you were okay with it. With what? With them, Melody and Jerome. They've been together for a while. Jerome is her brother. Nina shook her head slowly. He's not her brother. He's her boyfriend. Or partner. Whatever you want to call it. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. Sir, I've seen them. Not just as friends, as a couple. Kissing, holding hands. Fighting like couples do. They've been running this game for years. What game? She looked at me directly. The loan scam. They target foreign men, older men, lonely men. They build trust, introduce them to the family. Then they bring up the debt, the loan, the crisis, and the men pay. Always pay. You're lying. I wish I was. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos, Melody and Jerome, together, kissing. One photo showed them outside this very apartment building, his arm around her waist. I took these last year, Nina said, when they scammed another man, an American. He lost almost $200,000 before he found out. I stared at the photos. My hands were shaking. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I didn't know you were involved until I saw you here one day, and by then, I figured you already paid. They move fast. They don't give people time to think. I stood up. The room was spinning. Where's the house in Albay? The family? Probably rented for the day. They do that. Hire actors. Put on a whole show. I've heard about it from other victims. And Rico, the loan officer, part of the scam. All of it is fake. The documents, the stamps, everything. I felt like I was going to vomit. How much did you pay them? Nina asked gently. 104,000 Australian dollars. She closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. I walked out of her apartment in a daze, went to the address Tita Evelyn had given me. The house was empty, abandoned. The neighbors said no one had lived there for months. I tried calling Melody. Disconnected number. I tried calling Rico. Disconnected. I tried calling Jerome. Disconnected. Every number I had, every contact, gone. I sat on the curb outside that empty house and stared at my hands. Hands that had signed the agreements. Hands that had transferred the money. Hands that had held hers. And I realized something. I'd been so desperate to be needed. So desperate to matter. So desperate to believe that someone like her could love someone like me. I'd ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every rational thought, because I wanted it to be real, and now I'd lost everything. I found Attorney Rosales through the Australian embassy. They gave me a list of lawyers who specialized in fraud cases. He was the third one I called, the only one who agreed to see me the same day. His office was small but professional, diplomas on the wall, files stacked neatly on the desk. He listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. How much did you pay? He asked. 104,000 Australian dollars in 2 installments. And you have copies of the documents? Only photos I took on my phone. He nodded. Let me see them. I showed him everything. The loan agreements, the payment receipts, photos of Rico, photos with Melody's family. He studied them carefully. Zoomed in on the stamps. The signatures. These are fake, he said finally. What? The notary seal is wrong. The format doesn't match Philippine notary standards. The signatures are inconsistent. And this bank account you wired money to? It's a personal account, not a corporate lending account. How can you tell? I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen these scams dozens of times. They're sophisticated. They prey on emotion, on trust, on the desire to help. Can we get the money back? He hesitated. I'll be honest with you. It's unlikely. These groups move the money quickly. They use multiple accounts. By the time we trace it, it's already gone. Moved to offshore accounts or withdrawn as cash. But we can try, right? We can file a police report. I can help you do that. But I need you to understand something. The Philippine justice system moves slowly. Even with a police report, even with evidence, it could take years. And the people who did this to you are probably already in another country, running the same scam on someone else. I felt hollowed out, so I just lost everything. I'm sorry, he said. And he meant it. We filed the police report that afternoon. I gave them everything. Photos, transaction records, names, phone numbers, addresses. The detective was sympathetic but not optimistic. We'll investigate, he said. But these cases are difficult. The perpetrators are usually gone before we can act. I spent the next 3 days in my hotel room. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, every conversation, every moment, looking for the truth I'd missed. I pulled up Melody's last message. Got it, thank you. 2 words, and I'd given her everything. On the 4th day, I forced myself to open my banking app, stared at the balance. I'd started this trip with $287,000 in retirement savings, 40 years of work. Now I had $183,000. And no plan, no future, no hope. Attorney Rosales called me a week later. The police found the apartment where they were operating. It was cleared out, nothing left. We traced one of the phone numbers. It was registered to a fake ID. The bank accounts have been closed. So that's it? I asked. That's it, he said. I'm sorry, Allan. I wish I had better news. I hung up. Sat on my hotel bed, stared at the wall. I thought about calling my daughter, telling her what happened, but I couldn't face the shame. I thought about going to the store where I'd met Melody, but I couldn't face the memories. Instead, I just sat there, empty, and I wondered how someone could look you in the eye, hold your hand, and destroy you, and make you believe it was love. I flew back to Newcastle 3 weeks ago, told my daughter I'd decided to come home. She was thrilled, kept asking if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just ready to be back. I didn't tell her about the money, about Melody, about any of it. I told my old mate James I'd made a bad investment overseas, lost a chunk of savings. He said it happens to everyone, told me not to beat myself up, but I do beat myself up. Every single day. I sit on my porch in the evenings and think about her, about the way she smiled that first day in the store, about the way she held my hand at dinner, about the way she said, "You're a good man, Allan." Was any of it real? Was there ever a moment when she looked at me and saw a person instead of a target? I don't know. I'll never know. Some nights I'm angry. I want to fly back to Manila, hunt her down, make her admit what she did, make her face me. But most nights, I'm just sad. Sad because I was so desperate for connection that I ignored every warning sign. Sad because I let myself believe that a 26-year-old woman could love a 66-year-old man she barely knew. Sad because I threw away 40 years of savings trying to be someone's hero. And the worst part? I don't hate her. I hate myself for being so stupid, so blind, so goddamn needy. But I'm also trying to forgive myself. Because I know why I did it. I did it because Margaret died and I didn't know how to be alone. I did it because I wanted to matter again. I wanted to be needed. I wanted to feel like my life still had purpose, and Melody gave me that, even if it was a lie, even if it destroyed me. For a few months, I felt alive. I've started seeing a therapist. She says what happened wasn't my fault. She says these scams are designed to exploit vulnerability, that I shouldn't be ashamed. But I am ashamed. I'm ashamed that I fell for it. I'm ashamed that I didn't protect myself. I'm ashamed that I have to rebuild my life at 66 years old with half my savings gone. But I'm also still here, still breathing, still trying. My daughter came over last night, brought dinner. We sat on the porch, and she asked me if I was happy to be home. I told her the truth. I said I didn't know. "That's okay, Dad," she said. "You don't have to know everything right now." And maybe she's right. Maybe I don't have to have it all figured out. Maybe I just have to wake up tomorrow, and the day after that, and keep going. I still think about Melody sometimes. Wonder where she is, who she's with, if she thinks about me at all, if she feels any guilt, any remorse, or if I was just a job, just another lonely old man who handed over his money and disappeared. I'll never know. And I think I'm okay with that, because this isn't about her anymore. It's about me, about learning to live with my mistakes, about learning to forgive myself for being human, for being lonely, for wanting to be loved. I lost $104,000, but I didn't lose everything. I still have my daughter, my friends, my health, my life, and maybe, one day, I'll find hope again. But this time, I'll keep my eyes open. This time, I'll trust myself more than I trust a pretty smile. This time, I'll remember. Love shouldn't cost you everything, and if it does, it was never love at all.